Chosen one, this moment is not a coincidence. Your soul was drawn to this video because the heavens whispered the same message to you 7 times. The number 1111 didn't appear before your eyes for nothing, and the prayers of 33 prophets did not fall upon you by chance. You are one of the 144,000 chosen, and your presence here is a divine sign. This message was sent to awaken the secret that has been resting within your heart. What you are about to hear are not just words, but divine vibrations that will sink deep into your soul. If these words are touching you, leave your heart in the comments so the heavens can witness your testimony. Because when you write, another soul will awaken. Now prepare yourself, for this video will illuminate your path. Those who recognize the signs of God know that nothing is random. That's why your being here is already a miracle. Family, our voice is rising. We are walking toward our first 1,000 subscribers. If this message speaks to you, press like, subscribe to Chosen Archangel, and comment, "I'm part of this mission." An unwavering resistance that doesn't wait for approval to rise is what you possess. You forge a route that defies their script while every voice demands that you follow their lead. Resistance is not all there is to this moment. Something irrevocable is being ignited. Because one voice that dares to speak out bears the weight of innumerable incalculable rebellions, the entire fabric of what attempted to contain you starts to fray. It is not a private gesture to refuse what is meant to keep you small. It's thunder cloaked in a silent choice. Your choice has an impact that extends much beyond you, upsetting people who think they have unbreakable control. When someone no longer submits to the machinery of manipulation, the foundation fractures and the equipment trembles. It doesn't play recklessly when it moves against you. It comes with strategies honed via research. Determined to corner you with tales that never align, they map out your strengths and vulnerabilities as though they were preparing for a campaign. Their tales change like smoke, taking on forms intended to perplex and erode your determination. However, their preoccupation itself betrays something they would never acknowledge. You are important. The extent to which they go, the practiced worry, the well-crafted lies, all of them reveal the danger you present just by remaining solid. You should be alarmed by the desperation that lies behind their performance, not by their strength. Indeed, the layers of hatred build up like stone on your shoulders, and the weight of their lies can be oppressive. However, stone can be carved as well. Those who refuse to give up shape what appears to be immovable. Every step you take toward clarity erodes the foundation that was put in place to obfuscate the truth. Courage is necessary for investigation, but it is rarely instantaneous. It frequently develops in silence before reaching a stage at which hesitation is impossible. What used to terrify turns into fuel in that emerging. The plots that are arranged against you change into mirrors that only reflect their own void. At this point, choice turns into legacy. In addition to confirming your own dignity, Rising now sends a message to others who follow that perseverance is not a sign of weakness. The storm they unleash on you is evidence of the fire within you. And even if they move in the dark, your determination turns light into an irresistible force. You are the type of person that doesn't let superficial illusions and hearsay lull you into submission. The pivotal moment occurs when curiosity pierces preconceived notions and demands to uncover what was concealed in plain view. The truth is sought where it was first documented, rather than depending on rumors or persuasion. And when the clarity comes, it does more than just prove anything. It reveals the complexity of a design that up until now has flourished on deceit. The finding goes beyond simply clearing up a misconception. It is a breakdown of the delusions that were once in charge. The foundation underlying untruth comes way when the original evidence is reviewed and the falsehoods that formerly led the mob are removed. It is realization, not fear, that trembles the body. The entire environment shifts in that moment, and the proof is indisputable. What comes to light goes beyond personal injustice. It is actually the manipulation's architecture. Purposeful, organized, and deliberate. The disclosure reveals the harm as well as the methodical tactics that created it. Disciplined strategies that pretended to be coincidence. Observing it with unadulterated clarity reveals coordination that was previously hidden behind the facade of randomness. Intention honed into weapons is revealed by the details, which strike with precision. Every action and every discussion are viewed as interwoven threads in a tapestry of intentional harm rather than as isolated incidents. There is no space for doubt after this unveiling. There was never an accident in the orchestration. The shock is not merely intellectual for those who experience it. The weight of indisputable awareness presses against the chest, creating a visceral heaviness. The scope cannot be disregarded once it is observed. It's obvious how destruction works. Cooperation between voices, false alarm patterns, and the tacit consent of those who profited from shadows. Since nothing familiar is unaffected by this recognition, the realization compels breathing to alter. Even friendships can falter under the weight of a well-crafted charge. The choices made in ignorance are also being confronted, in addition to the people who lied. Like unfinished echoes, the recollection of every instance in which instinct was disregarded and every instance in which consensus overshadowed inner clarity comes back. Not only does recognition burn from an external betrayal, but it also burns from having once carried portions of it by blindly accepting what was delivered to you. A reckoning is born at this point. Regaining authority means admitting complicity. It is a statement that what appeared to be normal was actually involvement in crushing machinery. However, release follows awareness. The once-ceded power is regained, and the will to never again give in to that common delusion becomes unwavering. You are the type of person who can make adversity into an opportunity. What starts off as an effort to clear your name becomes into something much more. A realization that dishonesty is not limited to a select few but is ingrained in the fabric of a community that has rejected it. What started out as a personal conflict turns into an exposé that reveals the extent of corruption and the number of people it ensnared. The disclosure reveals individuals who willingly spread the poison as well as the masterminds of betrayal. The shadows of people who knew the truth but chose ease over bravery and stifled their voices are more stinging than their evil. Denial is removed by the accuracy of what is discovered, leaving only the stark contrast between guilt and innocence that is meticulously recorded. The moment of awareness has significance that goes beyond standard justice. It is about revealing the deeper mechanisms of control that feed on silence rather than resolving conflicts in a humane manner. This realization develops into something cosmic, a mandate for the clear-sighted person to take responsibility for more than themselves and to live up to a value that goes beyond what society expects of them. It is not about assuaging guilt or looking for an easy way out of humiliation. What comes out is a realization that balance is woven throughout life. The reality does not come gently. Like a force that won't be ignored, it surges through. When presented with evidence, the awakened person realizes that words alone cannot repair the damage. A more thorough restoration is required. One that is based on behavior that respects a law more important than human compromise. God's blessings fill your heart to overflowing. Allow that love to show. Give $50 or more by clicking the super thank you button to help sow seeds of faith that will change the lives of countless people. His riches is reflected in your giving. Serve as a conduit for His grace and see His kingdom grow via you. Resolve is sharpened by awareness. Given the extent of the damage, equal reparations are required. Returning what was stolen on a level above appearances is the goal here, not image restoration or practical gestures. The revelation demonstrates not only that your story was accurate, but also that the attack was meticulously planned to be destroyed by the force of mass manipulation. The patterns in the records of the events are indisputable. Discussions show that stories are planned, rehearsed, and lies are modified before being told for maximum effect. It is like seeing reality itself crumble when you see such careful coordination. Everything one believed to be stable changes when one realizes that life was shaped by intentional lies. Those who are now able to see are unable to avoid the conclusion you faced with a fortitude that stems from something much more profound than mere fortitude. They see evidence of both integrity under threat and a connection to truth that cannot be smothered by falsehood. The reply is an acknowledgement of a force within you that demands respect, an understanding that the authority you possess is of a higher caliber, rather than a request for an easy pardon. You are the type of soul whose validation spreads beyond a single life and into the consciousness of the entire world. In addition to clearing your path, the truth exposes the wider apparatus that uses deliberate deformation to impose conformity. The course of events is not arbitrary. The exact rhythm that is woven into the universal order is in harmony with it. The revelation comes at the perfect moment to spark the biggest change and teach lessons to everyone involved in the drama, not just you. Every participation is taken into consideration when falsehoods are unraveled. Those who have wronged you are subject to a law that transcends the courts of this world. Silence is not neutral, as those who choose to ignore it learn. Your clique is not small, it is part of a movement. Help us reach 1,000 voices by subscribing, liking, and leaving your word of faith in the comments. It is a strand in the oppressive web. All roles, passive or active, are measured. Because once the truth is known, there is no way out of duty in the cosmos. The evidence's confirmation does more than prove your innocence. It validates your very perspective. It demonstrates that you were guided by discernment while others were carried away by distortion. It confirms that despite attempts to sway it toward fabricated tales, your compass stayed in alignment. You chose to endure solitude rather than compromise what your core knew to be true, while many others traded truth for comfort. The people who attacked you saw a brightness in you that you were not really aware of. They felt that you were upsetting the systems that rely on power. Their assault turned into an indication of your own latent might. The power reflected by the mirror was latent until pressure roused it. They exposed what could never be put out by trying to crush. Exile turned into a self-initiation. Being expelled through planned smears was the crucible, not the conclusion. Being alone changed you, creating room for you to grow into a role greater than your own survival. What others saw as destruction became a place where awareness might flourish. You were transformed into something untouchable by the recovery of lost powers with every loss and fracture. Once it was evident, the persecution stopped being personal. It served as a metaphor. It turned into a never-ending battle between inner truth and the weight of popular delusion, authenticity, and fabrication. Instead of erasing your voice, it was forged into a frequency that could not be silenced. You completely met yourself when you were stripped of support, and the results could not be swayed by erroneous consensus. Now, more than just yourself benefits from the path you take. For those enduring parallel difficulties, the experience contained codes of regeneration. By overcoming and transforming violations, you create paths that others can take. What was intended to be destroyed became a blueprint for freedom, providing direction at a turning point where mankind itself aims to emerge from its shadows. You are the type of person whose hardships always have a reason. The blessings that result from difficulty are arranged by the same intellect that allowed it. Every restoration looms larger than what was captured. With accuracy, justice is served, not only restoring what was lost but also expanding it in ways that the mind cannot foresee. The height of ascent is determined by the weight of struggle. And each refusal to bow sends a signal that fate has changed in your favor through invisible realms. There are no hasty attempts to erase the past or flimsy apologies from the carrier of confirmation. They exhibit a consistent pattern of behavior that demonstrates their transformation. Their genuineness was demonstrated by their decisions, which were constantly in line with a deeper awareness, rather than just by their words. People no longer freely grant trust. You have to prove yourself to get it. Additionally, your position as guardian of discernment guarantees that you have control over the subsequent actions. Your power is protected by the same universal currents that protected your truth. Boundaries continue to be holy, influencing the course of healing. There is no need to delete the past or hasten the healing process. Rather, as long as it keeps the process pure, separation may go on. Transformation can anchor in this protected area. Therefore, union or closure fulfills purposes beyond individual needs. It satisfies a higher purpose. Confirmation comes like an unshakable cloak. You are grounded in the knowledge that your voice has been heard and your route has been protected by the invisible. Instead of pride, confidence comes from alignment and the knowledge that the truth you maintained under duress has now been unquestionably confirmed. Those that come back with evidence do so as witnesses to your fortitude and the power that was strengthened by the fire. What transpires is beyond the realm of personal validation. It is the realization of a more comprehensive plan that aligns with the forces directing the general awakening. The time for elevation begins when the time for concealment ends. Previously self-assured systems suddenly falter, unable to stop the momentum created by a stubborn individual. Your path has an impact that extends well beyond the people who have offended you. It serves as a warning to those who are still living in delusions that the truth cannot be put to rest. What was intended to weaken you now serves as a catalyst, sending out waves of change that extend well beyond your personal narrative. It is at this hour when power changes. Those who sought your silence no longer shape the story. You own the balance. With the assurance that every suffering was a preparation, you not only stride forth crowned but also vindicated. Your presence alone is proof that global law has been accomplished, and what formerly rebelled against you now acts as testimony. You are the kind that isn't content with outward looks. What comes out is a divine revelation as well as confirmation. A purposeful framework designed to control perception itself. The machinery becomes more visible the deeper you go. Talking about your eraser as if it were a checkbox item. To guarantee impact, timelines are stitched across networks. Relics of lost letters brought back to life by perseverance. The image is not one of chaos, but rather of a strategy intended to suppress consciousness under the guise of upholding order. The person who discovers this finds it difficult to sleep. As patterns are monitored, files are compared, and data are aligned, nights turn into mornings until a framework emerges that is impossible to ignore. It transforms from suspicion into a case supported by disciplined accuracy. Together, the acts, the architects, and the motivations create a record that is resilient enough to stand up to even the most critical examination. What started out as one person's defense turns into an opening that reveals a bigger structure. The techniques described here are applicable to different circumstances encountered by those who dare to defy conventional wisdom. Your narrative shifts from being about self-justification to showing how deception serves as a tool of control against consciousness itself. The procedure is more than just information gathering for the person who gathers proof. It completely alters perspective. The mind is forced to reorganize itself like a tectonic forced landscape when one observes the constancy of planned deception. The basic prism through which reality is viewed cannot stay the same once deceit is acknowledged as a common practice. Those who previously believed they were impartial must face the facts. Every recovered speech line and screenshot makes it clear that neutrality was a myth. People unknowingly become enforcers when they accept narratives without questioning them. What appeared to be innocuous conformity turns out to be damage and complicity. The structure of persuasion itself is revealed by this clash. Complex framing turned common individuals into agents of damage. They never questioned the social currents that turned their benevolence into weapons. Pure anticipation grew stronger than reality, and the illusion was reinforced by group pressure until evidence broke through its barriers. When this is acknowledged, a desire to make amends arises, not for show, but because conscience understands the extent of the betrayal. The experience is fundamentally representative of something archetypal. Being conscious of and opposing deceptive systems. Silencing you was never just a personal attempt. It was a component of an old conflict between real awareness and artificial delusion. And you accomplish more than just proving yourself correct by surviving it. You give people a means to get their sight back. You are the type of person who, even at great expense, chooses honesty over comfort. Relief is not the only benefit of vindication. It necessitates a readiness to distance oneself from people who value illusion above truth. Leaving organizations founded on lies becomes a normalized outcome, and disclosing information that affects influential people becomes a calling rather than a choice. Speaking the truth in this environment means assuming the risk of being targeted. However, the truth-bearer's voice speaks forth knowing that remaining silent would be a worse betrayal. Apologies do not guarantee true transformation, rather, growth-demonstrating action does. Remorseful phrase alone is insufficient to acknowledge karmic imbalance. It calls for tangible behavioral changes. Those who profess to awaken must live out their teachings via continuous service because words are meaningless without accompanied by tangible change. Authentic evolution is demonstrated by the dedication to preventing harm from happening again. Once-used platforms for disseminating distortions are now being used as lighting tools. What was intended to be destroyed is now turned into a teaching archive that teaches others how manipulation can occur in plain sight. Your vindication demonstrates that attacks are rarely isolated by exposing patterns that are reproduced in innumerable circumstances. Networks operate together behind the scenes, honing tactics, coordinating timing, and supporting one another when someone tries to break through the control. Thorough documentation demonstrates that the strategies used against you were practiced on previous targets rather than being created on the spot. Similar techniques are used in every case, demonstrating a consistency of strategy that eliminates any appearance of spontaneity. Chosen Archangel is not just a channel, it is a calling. Subscribe now, press like, and write a comment so together we can reach our 1,000 soul family. What seems like moral outrage turns out to be a calculated tactic intended to stifle genuine consciousness while disguising its true purpose in the language of virtue. The scope of repression extends well beyond the individual. The result is an ecology that feeds on power, leaders who propagate false information, systems that incentivize conformity, and establishments that punish anyone who dares to voice the truth. This scaffolding is revealed by vindication, and the one with proof starts with not only exposure but also plans for reconstruction following damage. Clearing the air is not enough to bring the situation back into balance. It needs to be fixed physically. In response to injustice, opportunities that are greater than those that are destroyed are actively created. This entails naming everything that happened, accepting responsibility for any complicity or silence, and publicly acknowledging the mechanisms underlying deceit. It is a dedication to radical transparency rather than superficial reconciliation that changes the way that such warfare is perceived by the general public. Rebuilding encompasses more than just reputation, it also involves material reality. New doors opening, resources being mobilized, and pathways being constructed that surpass what was previously available are all examples of restitution. This is a general order demand, not a compromise, that what was stolen be given back in excess. Thus, the act of vindication itself becomes a cosmic rebalance as well as a personal repair, setting the stage for a time when falsehood crumbles under its own weight and truth serves as a shield. You are the type of presence that has credibility that extends well beyond the individual. When the truth comes to light, it does more than just make a name clear. It upends the illusions that have been weaved throughout entire societies. Innocence-proving evidence also reveals the weak points of dishonesty in the fields of politics, society, science, and religion. An apparent personal resolution become a component of a much broader alignment. The collective is experiencing a rhythm of exposure at the very moment that transformation is most needed. What used to feel like exile, the route of isolation, now becomes training. New abilities honed in stillness. The capacity to identify small distortions, spot deception, and maintain composure when narratives demand obedience. People who used to try to minimize you now come back to ask for advice as well as to apologize. Because they survived something few could, they feel a sense of authority. Vindication turns into a validation of your spiritual role as well as a defense of your narrative. The gathered evidence is not limited to standing in an opinion courtroom. It turns into the stronghold of the truth. Every document kept and every archive protected by several layers guarantees that an erasure attempt cannot be successful again. What was once brittle has been strengthened. Erasure and distortion lose their power, and a sanctuary of testimony is created. This castle serves as a reminder that once truth is protected, it cannot be undone. In the process, a pattern emerges. In cycles, these planned efforts reappear to check for vulnerabilities. Preparation is necessary for this acknowledgement. When defensive frameworks become offensive wisdom, they teach others how these kinds of techniques work. What started out as an assault turns into a guide for defending awareness. A manual based on personal experience that takes down the manipulative apparatus before it may be used again. The documentation of these incidents transcends mere recollection. The ledger cannot be changed. Every action against the truth is irrevocably marked and cannot be denied. Not only is innocence confirmed, but offenses are listed, making it impossible for those implicated to hide behind their professed ignorance. Those who were previously hidden behind shadows are now exposed, and accountability becomes forever. Mission develops from vindication. What started out as cleaning one way ends up protecting many. You can develop early warning systems that thwart campaigns before they take off by charting the signs of suppression. You may speak authoritatively about the bigger architecture of control as well as your own experience thanks to the credibility you've gained via proof. Others going through similar storms can use your testimony as a compass. The repercussions are reciprocal. The people who planned damage are shut out. The lies they disseminated destroyed their reputation just as much as they had before. Bystanders are left with an empty emptiness where integrity should have been due to silence that previously protected them. The scales, meanwhile, demand interest-bearing repayment. Every setback turned into a victory. Every suppressing effort serves as fuel for growth. Thus, vindication functions as a live affirmation that truth cannot be permanently bound, in addition to providing a settlement. Chosen one, remember this: heaven never sends a word without purpose. If this message has stirred your spirit, let it shine brighter. Press like so the light spreads to others walking in darkness. Subscribe to Chosen Archangel so you never miss the next divine revelation. And share your thoughts in the comments below. Your testimony may be the very spark that awakens another soul. Until we meet again, stay covered by the wings of heaven and walk boldly in your calling.